Hi everyone, today the video is focused on finding central idea. This video is designed to support learning around March 25th assignment. You should be watching this video if you struggle to figure out what the central idea is in a text. So I'm going to go through, there are 3 simple steps that you should be following in order to find the central idea. Step 1, as it always is, you need to be reading and annotating. For your annotations, you should focus on creating 3 to 5 strong gists that captures what is happening in the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. Now, this will depend on the length of the story or the article and how fast the pace of the story goes, but generally you want 3 to 5 gists. Step 2. Look over your gists and decide what is the most important part. What are the most important parts? So this is where we have to take a risk and make a choice. Sometimes, especially when we are developing a new skill, it can be challenging to decide what the most important parts are. Things that I like to think about. Make sure you know who your characters are. Figure out what the problem is, whatever the problem is. And if there is a solution, then that is also an important thing to include in your gists. We're going to go through an example in a minute and I will outline these. But step 3 is write one sentence that captures the most important ideas of what happened next, happens in this text. So the reason why it's one sentence is because a central idea should be very short and to the point. It needs to be just the big thing that happens. It's different from gists in the fact that gist can provide some context or a little bit closer to summary. Central idea is never more than one sentence. So we're going to go through an example from Ellis Island, which was one of the texts that we had in Common Lit last week. As most of you have already completed, and those of you who haven't are going to shortly, you are expected to already have read and annotated this poem, so I'm not going to read it and annotate it here for you. What I am going to go through is I'm going to go through our 3 steps. So our first step says, read and annotate, focus on creating 3 strong gists that capture what's happening in the beginning, middle, and end of the story. So this is pretty easy because there are 3 stanzas. So I'm going to focus on creating 3 strong gists that captures what's happening in this poem. So at the beginning of the poem, narrator's grandparents come to America through Ellis Island. So that's our first one. Our second gist would be from this middle stanza. Like millions of others, I too come to this island, 9 decades answerer of dreams. So this is the narrator comes to visit after generations of his family have lived here. And then the third one is talking about the fact that even though, let's see how we want to phrase it. So really what this third stanza is talking about is the fact that though it was really great for many people to come to this country through Ellis Island, it also meant the end of a type of life that existed before here with the Native Americans. So let's see how we can say this. Narrator complicates the history of America, specifically the the taking of land from the Native people. Okay, so I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so I don't run out of space. This is going to be 14. Okay, so then my step 2, let's go back to our steps. Our step 2 is look over the 3 to 5 gists and decide what are the most important parts of these gists. So if I'm going to just name what are the most important parts, I would say that underline. Narrator is both, oops, I did not spell narrator right. That happens. Is both proud to be American. Okay, well, let's say most important part. Narrator is proud to be American. Narrator also recognizes the injustice America brought to Native people. So those are the 2 big things, right? So he's proud, but he also recognizes the injustice. So now we need to put this all in one sentence. I won't pretend that having it be a shorter poem doesn't make this easier. This can be challenging as the length of a text gets longer, but for the example here, we can say through the narrator of this poem recognizes the complicated history of America and Americans and immigration. So the narrator of this poem recognizes the complicated history of America and immigration. The reason why I added the word immigration in here, but we don't have it anywhere in our step 1 or step 2, is because of his grandparents coming to America through Ellis Island, right? We didn't really talk about, we talked about the pride. So if we wanted to add a second sentence, maybe we would talk about pride, or we could, or let's do an or. Oops, I didn't mean to do that, sorry. Or we could say, the narrator is proud to be American, but understands that America came at a cost. So either one of these would work as a central idea of this poem, and it's because both of them capture this like complicated tone that comes up, right? The fact that he's talking about how proud and excited his grandparents were, and he's lived here and been very, it seems like from the tone, 9 decades, the answer of dreams makes it sound like he still is happy to live here. But then he also talks about the invasion and the taking of land, right? So he understands the cost, but he is also proud. So I would probably even say that this central idea is stronger than the first one that I wrote. And that's okay. Remember, this is a process, and taking a risk and then getting feedback, even if that feedback is, no, this is not right, is still valuable, and you should be taking risks in your work. Please keep it up and know that I love you.